Your third speaker, his name is Quentin Walcott from Connect. Quentin is a leading United States anti-violence activist, educator, and writer. He is the co-executive director of Connect, a New York City nonprofit organization dedicated to preventing interpersonal violence and promoting gender justice, headquartered in New York. Walcott boldly pushes communities to redefine manhood by working to build a society that embraces equality, mutuality, and rejects violence in communities as the status quo. Since 2000, he has worked tirelessly to address a critical part of the equation to ending violence against men. Walcott has developed and launched some of New York City's only programs aimed at transforming bystanders, many of them being men, boys, and batterers, into allies and activists against all forms of violence. Please put your hands together for Quentin Walcott.
Okay, so forget Quentin Walcott. All my friends and family call me Q, so feel free to do the same. Let's say Q. Q. All right. So I'm going to do a little stand-up exercise again, because not to copy, but I just really want to make a point. Who here has been, stand up if you've been harassed in any form? Okay, sit down. Stand up if you have witnessed someone being harassed. Okay, this is a tough one. Sit down, please. Stand up if you have harassed someone before. So I know everyone's standing. Okay, all right. So my name is Quentin Walcott, everyone calls me Q. Born and raised in New York City. I've lived in Harlem, Queens, Brooklyn, everywhere except Staten Island, unfortunately. I'm one of two boys, raised by a single mom. You know, I went to New York City public schools. I graduated from CUNY, so I've been a public school person throughout my life. And it's significant that I talk about my mom raising us as two boys, because living in New York City without a father, there's many challenges that we faced, right? So for me, relying on the men in my life, in terms like many of the men in my life were my peers growing up in school. So a lot of the images around manhood and masculinity and what I thought it was to be a man came from boys, right? So we were trying to make it up as we went along, right? So me growing up and living in New York City, I faced many different things as a young black man, right? Racism, police brutality in my neighborhoods, all types of things that young men and black men experience, or men of color experience in particular. So the first level of harassment I received was from the police, right? And being a male, again, so I'm born with unearned privilege, and that so that's male privilege that I have. I don't have white privilege. I'm not a white male, but I do have male privilege in my communities. So that gave me certain access to resources, gave me certain access to parts of the city where my female counterparts would not be safe, right? So when I was growing up, I went to Brandeis High School. I don't know if anybody knows Brandeis High School, right? So right, 84th Street and what have you. So I would hang out with the guys from school, and we would go down to the village, and our thing was to try to get as many phone numbers as possible. So I would go, and I was a decent looking guy, halfway decent looking guy, so I got a lot of numbers, right? But so for me, it was looking at Q as the individual person, or Q as the private person, and who Q was in a public space, or who Q was in a group. So Q as an individual raised by a single mom who taught me and my brother to respect women, to trust women, to value women, was who I was in a private setting as an individual person. But when I got around a group of boys or older men, I became a totally different person, right? So the public Q was different from the individual or the Q that was inside the home, right? So we go out to West 4th Street and hang out by the train station as young women would walk by. The challenge was to see who could get the most numbers and collect that at the end of the night, right? So I played along. I'm saying I'm playing along because this is the public Q. So for me, it was kind of like a rites of passage that kind of gave me access to this mailbox where young men who are trying to be leaders and who are trying to fit in with other men nestled into this nice, comfortable box. So for me, it was like, all right, I don't have a father. I have a brother who's just 1 year older than I am, so we're trying to figure out what manhood is. And so let me kind of fit in. So I played this game, right? So a young woman would walk by down the block, and I would say, all right, they would say, okay, Q, go get the number. So, what I would do was I would run up to the young woman, and I would say, I'm really sorry, but I have to do this because these guys, I'm worried about what these guys will say to me if I don't come back with your telephone number. Right, so I would harass someone so I wouldn't be harassed in the process, right? But then I totally knew that this was incorrect and wrong, and this was disrespectful to women because, again, I was a mama's boy. I was raised by a single black mother who was conscious, who was struggling and trying to make it, raising 2 boys in New York City. So I understood the implications of what I was doing, but I felt that I needed to fit in. So again, for me, this was a rites of passage. And so I would come back, and if I did not get the number, it's the usual process, oh, what happened? You soft, you didn't get the number, blah, 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 blah. And then I have to make something up, and I probably have to call her a name or something like that because I didn't get the number, right? So that was part of the rites of passage. And me, conflicted about this, knowing that this was incorrect and wrong, but again, the public cue, trying to fit in with other men, and trying to demonstrate a level of masculinity that was tough and strong and hyper, right? That was really a detriment to young women and even to myself, really, because I was conflicted about this, felt bad at the end of the day. And I had conversations with my mother about this, and she would do things that young black moms would do in terms of if I was disrespectful to a woman, she would let me know. She held me accountable to that. So I got punished and all these different things, but I was so conflicted about it that, I continued to do that as I grew up and, progressed in manhood. But I understood it was difficult and wrong. So for me, going back to thinking about how it was for me to be harassed by police, and then I was harassed by, growing up as well, and being a single male in like a lot of public spaces where there was a lot of women, I would get harassed as well. And how that felt for me was like, wow, how can I actually do this to someone else and it was being done to me? And the thing about that was that, all the forms of harassment that I experienced was really about me as a male with entitlement and with privilege, seeing and feeling that me being harassed was more, as a male, had more value than a woman being harassed was, because I had male privilege and entitlement, and I had a certain expectation because I was socialized in a certain way by other men for women to have to respect me in a way just because I was a male, this unearned privilege that I had as a male, that women had to respect me. Their value wasn't as high as mine was. So all those different things came into play in terms of my development, but then, really being critical about who I am, my thinking, the women around me, and then of course, as a starting point, I thought about, the women in my life. My mom, I was with my mom one day at a flea market at Shea Stadium in Queens, and someone harassed her, and I almost lost my mind. I wanted to beat this guy up, and so seeing through the people that were close and dear to me how harassment had an impact on them made me realize what the impact of me harassing anyone, even if it's something I really did not want to do, what really kind of the impact it had on those young women that I was trying to get their telephone number just to kind of play this game and fit in with these guys. So for me, it was really important to think about the women in my life, but then really moving beyond just my cousin or my aunt or my mom, and thinking about women in general, right? The impact it had on women in general, not the ones closest and dear to me. So that's important. The struggle is to really think about impacting all women, seeing them the same, not just the ones that do something for you. It's important to think about it that way. And then also, like Linda mentioned, it's really about, when we did that stand-up exercise, it's the bystanders are really crucial and critical around this, because as a bystander, we can really make an impact on the behavior around us. So I'm just gonna leave you with these 4 C's in terms of like engaging men and boys, because that's the work that I do for the last 18 years now. To really think about the first C is having the courage to take this on as an issue, to see that this is important and it's not just about you, and to really take this issue on. The second C is the consistency, right? Because a lot of times people say, oh, Q, you know, I talk to the young men in my neighborhood, and I say, well, how many times did you talk to them? They say, oh, it's that one time, they just don't get it, right? So we have to have consistent conversations with young men and young women about, you know, sexual harassment, street harassment, all forms of harassment. This is all part of a continuum of violence. And the other piece is to really have creativity around, you know, what you're doing and thinking outside of the box when you're engaging people in these conversations and taking this issue on. But the last one is what we've already talked about and what we're doing here today in forums like this, creating safe spaces for us to be in this conversation. Men and women must become allies, right? And to do that, we have to build trust, we have to build safety, and some levels of accountability so we can be in conversation and really move past this idea or this notion that, you know, being a man or being a young person, young boy in New York City is a rite of passage. So that's my message to you all, is that we have to be in conversation, be consistent, be courageous, and be creative. Thank you.